Never was better than know what you relevant. I'm too competitive. Walking the clock in my level one excellent. I cut the break like it's cousin and Sheffield. You told me we selling it. I'm rising the bed in the air like an elephant. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Log Show here, post Super Bowl. I'm Logan. You're listening to the Log Show here on WSJU Radio. And boy, do we got a game to talk about. An all-time classic that we saw on Sunday between the Chiefs and the Eagles that saw the Chiefs become Super Bowl champions for the third time, and I believe is either or for the second time in either 3 or 4 years. Pat Mahomes gets his second ring. Travis Kelce wins the Kelce Bowl. We saw a lot of good football on that game on Sunday. After a year of bad football, ironically enough, we get an all-time classic to end the year, and I can't wait to talk about that game. But I do want to talk about other sports first because I could go on for days about that game. I want to make sure I do cover other stuff today. So I want to start in basketball because a lot of major stuff has happened since in this past week, since last Tuesday. Honestly, the end of last week was crazy with the trade deadline. We saw KD get traded to the Suns for it was Miles Bridges, someone else, and a bunch of picks. That was absolutely insane to see. KD is now on the Suns. The Suns are now the favorite to win the NBA Finals. So that is absolutely, they made the finals last year. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and now with the addition of KD, they have and DeAndre Ayton, they have a very, very good team down there. Kyrie has officially started playing for the Mavericks. He's been doing pretty well down there. Over his 4 games down there, he's been averaging 28.3 points, 7 assists, just about 5 rebounds. And the Mavs are 2-2 since him getting traded there. And he's looked very well. Luka hasn't even lost a step with Kyrie there, which seems to be very, very good for them because that's what I thought was going to happen with that trade. I thought his scoring was going to have to take a step back, but it hasn't yet. His scoring has only gone up. He's now leading the league. He's tied for the league leader in scoring with Joel Embiid. So this Dallas team is also another very dangerous team come playoff time with Kyrie, who's been there, done that in the playoffs. Luka, who's an absolute monster. So the Mavs seem to be moving. And, when you look at the West and you look at the East, we're kind of back to that early 2000s unbalancedness. There aren't very many good teams in the East that I feel like could go very far. But then again, you look at the top of the West, none of them are old enough. They're all young teams. So I don't know how many of them are going to go far either. You got the Nuggets at the 1 seed in the West. And really, you hear people talk, and I wonder this because I haven't really watched that much of the NBA this season. Now that football's over, obviously, I get heavy into basketball as soon as football ends. Just once football is going on, my main focus is always NFL. But I don't hear anyone really picking the Nuggets for the championship, which I find very interesting because it's like maybe they're too young. Maybe people don't feel like they're built to win a championship, but they are the 1 seed in the West. Jokic is at an absolute animal. It's possible to win another MVP this year. So I don't see why they wouldn't be a finals contender. You got the Grizzlies up there. I agree with that, with the Grizzlies and the Kings that are up there in the Western Conference standings. Both of them, in a sense, I feel like are too young and don't have the playoff experience where they might win, the first round because of who they play. But, with the matchups, like the Kings play the Clippers as of right now in the playoffs. The Clippers got a lot of experience. You got Paul George, you got Kawhi. Yeah, they're not playing as well. Yes, they're up there in age, but when it comes playoff time, they know what it takes to really grind it out. The Kings haven't been to the playoffs in 20-odd years? You know what I mean? So, really, I don't see those teams in the West. But then again, you got the Suns, you got the Mavs, you got the Clippers. The Pelicans are another young team. you see a lot of young teams here in the West at the top, but I feel like experience is going to come when it comes playoff time. The Warriors are still there. They're always bound to go on a run, even if they're slow in the regular season. So you got that. And then over in the East, like I said, I don't see as many teams that seem that good because the Grizzlies obviously have said they're young, but could they go on a run and make the finals? 110% they could. But like in the East, you got the Celtics, Bucks, and Sixers are probably the only three teams I could see actually making the finals. The Cavs, yeah, Donovan Mitchell and what the Cavs have been able to do this year are insane. Donovan Mitchell had that absolutely baffling scoring game earlier this year where he scored whatever it was like 72 points or something like that. But I can't really see that team going on a run to the finals. The Nets right now are sitting at the 5 seed, but they just traded away KD and Kyrie. I feel like they fall even out of the playoffs. It's possible. I don't know. Spencer Dinwiddie and the crew's been playing well. They remind me of Nets teams of old before they got KD and Kyrie when they had Spencer Dinwiddie, ironically enough, and they had, Jeremy Lin and all those guys, and they were a bunch of dogs squeezing the playoffs one year. But I don't know about that. You got the Heat, who haven't been playing as great this year. As a Knicks fan, I want to say we could go on a run, but I really don't know. So you don't have as many good teams in the East really this year. But yeah, I mean, going back on that, speaking of the Knicks, they make a big trade at the trade deadline that I really liked, or I didn't love actually. Looking back at it, I liked it in the moment. I look back at it, I didn't love it because they trade their 2023 first round pick. It's lottery protected, which is good because if the Knicks happen to fall out of the playoffs or losing the play in, they still have that pick. But also, I don't know. I also feel like the Knicks obviously aren't going to go on a run this year at all. I don't see them going on much of a run in the playoffs. So trading away that first round pick kind of scares me, especially because it does seem like they're going to make the playoffs. But they used like I said, the 2023 lottery protected first round pick. They trade Cam Reddish, Ryan Arcidiacono, and then Fee. I might butcher this last name. It's Fee Mihailuk. They trade them to Portland for Josh Hart, who I'm a huge fan of. Josh Hart yesterday against Brooklyn played absolutely so well. Him and Jalen Brunson combined for just under 70 points. They played absolutely insane in a win yesterday against Brooklyn. In his first game, he only had 11 points, but he didn't really play that much. And you saw he had to get adjusted. But besides that, I feel like he's a very good scoring addition for the Knicks and something that they've been lacking without RJ really playing well this year. They got that addition of Josh Hart. I feel like it'll be pretty big for them going forward. Like I said, they got that win against Brooklyn yesterday, a big win. Brunson had 45 and 2. Hart had 27, 2 and 4, and then Randall had 18, 4 and 10. So those three are I could argue they're a big three now. I don't know. Maybe Josh Hart's not at an all-star level, so I don't know if he's big three contender. Like you could put his name in that big three conversation. But I put an argument that even I think Brunson should have got in as a Nick over Julius Randle. But that is besides the point. Julius Randle's a two-time All-Star. Jalen Brunson's been playing at an All-Star level all time this year. That's been a great duo. And to add the scoring of Josh Hart, I feel like is going to be huge. The spot-up shooting, he's very good at. So I think it's a very, very good addition for the Knicks. And like I said, helped us get a really big win yesterday in Brooklyn. We won 124-106. And going forward, our next game, we play the Hawks tomorrow, which that's always a fun game after what happened in the playoffs. Not a big fan of Trae Young here in New York. I don't think any of us are as Knicks fans. So that'll be a fun game. Hopefully we could get a win there. Then we got the Wizards on Friday and the Pelicans on Saturday. So not a terrible upcoming 3 games for the Knicks. And then they'll get a rest on Sunday, and then they got a big game against the Celtics on Monday, February 27th. So 4-game stretch, not that, you got the Hawks. that are just below us in the standings. You got the Wizards who are in the play-in, so not Pelicans are in the playoffs. These are all teams who are in the playoffs, so not a super easy stretch here for the Knicks, but not a super difficult stretch coming up here for the Knicks. But yeah, like I've been saying, they made a big move. I think they're going to sit around the 7th and 6th seed for the rest of the season. But maybe they could squeeze up, go, maybe get a 5, hopefully 4, so we get home court advantage. And then maybe we could squeeze out a series, but I don't think the Knicks are going on any sort of finals run at all. So before I talk and go on and on and on and on and on about Sunday's game and just NFL in general, and I mean, today's show, after I really talk about the Super Bowl, I will say it will be kind of just me thinking about NFL headlines and what I feel is going on, you know. But before I talk about anything NFL, I want to talk about the other huge event that happened this week that sadly I didn't catch enough of, which was UFC 284. Now, I'm a huge UFC fan, but as a college student who doesn't have a lot of friends that are UFC fans, uh, I don't have the money to pay $70, in all honesty. The stream that I had was not really working very well. So I guess Dana White found it. I don't know. But my stream kept buffering over and over and over again, and I was not really able to catch much of any of the fights on Saturday, sadly. But me being the fan I am, I rewatched as much highlights as I could, and this is what I took away. Justin Tafa makes a name for himself with a very, very exciting knockout. He gets a first round finish, and that was something. And not to the point of that UFC event so far was not super exciting. The fight before ended in a draw. So Justin Tafa, it was a very wow factor, a nice punch, just put his opponent to sleep. Moving on from that, another big note that we have is Yair wins that interim featherweight belt by submission over Paul Felder, and a huge win for Yair Rodriguez, someone I've been a fan of for a very, 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 very long time. You got him winning the interim featherweight belt. I believe it's the past 4 or 5 interim featherweight champions have all gone on to become champion. So that is very, very good for him. And just a very, very good win for Yair Rodriguez to I don't want to say put his name on the map, because Yair Rodriguez has always been at the top of the featherweight division for a while, and he's always been teetering on these chances of these championship chances, and he's always been teetering on, he's lost a bunch of championship bouts, and he's been in 2 or 3 before. He's always been the number 2 contender and just not got that fight because he already got beat once by that champion, or on their way up or something like that. So to see Yair finally get a belt is very, very good and exciting for him, and hopefully could give him some momentum, and maybe he could go on a little bit of a fight win streak, maybe get an exciting finish. Because moving on to the fight, I don't know when he's going to fight Volk again, because if we with that fight, wow. And I want to say, wow, I wish I got to see that whole fight. I really did. I wish my stream didn't buffer, and I really wish it worked, because that was an all-time fight from what I've heard and from what I've seen in the highlights. From with my stream messing up, from what I caught in the rounds and from what I caught from the highlights, I had Volk winning, but very close, and I could see how Islam won. I could fill it in my head based off what I'm not seeing in the highlights and what I missed, and I can 110% see how Islam wins instead of Volkanovski. So I'm not upset with the decision nonetheless. Again, like I said, sadly I wasn't able to watch it, but from what I caught, Both of their next fight, it's probably a rematch from what I can get and what I catch is you're probably going to get a rematch between the two as both of their next fights because of how close that fight was and how big of a fight it was. They just switched spots. You could argue maybe they're tied now. They're not even switched, they're tied for number one pound for pound fighter in the world. They are, according to ESPN standings, tied for number one pound for pound fighter in the world. But then obviously also you have the argument Islam beat him, Islam's won. So that is what I say. Islam is one. Volk gets knocked down to 2 pound for pound fighter in the world. But it was an insane, insane fight from what I caught, from what I've heard. Again, sadly, I was not able to watch that whole fight. And I cannot wait to see the rematch, and I will make sure I see the rematch. But also now moving on to the next event we have in the UFC world in 2 weeks. Saturday, March 4th. Just everyone be ready for it. It is the return of the Jon Bones Jones. I'm going to transfer some football talk over here. An absolute certified dog, Jon Jones is. For all you fans that have been watching UFC since Jon Jones been suspended since his last fight against, I believe it was, I don't even remember who his last fight was against because it's been like 2 years since Jon Jones has fought. And man, am I excited for this fight. Johnny Bones Jones, man. Him and Ciryl Gane. I think it is going to be a great fight. I think Jon Jones is going to win. But my prediction is Jon Jones wins by knockout because I think Ciryl Gane's a very, very talented wrestler. And I think Jon Jones is going to take him down a couple times. And Jon Jones is going to show that I'm also an elite wrestler. So he's going to make Ciryl Gane kind of forced to play with him in stand-up. And I think Jon Jones will get a finish. And I'm super excited for the return of this man. He was my favorite fighter growing up. Maybe not the greatest person. I understand that. And I completely do not vouch for anything Jon Jones did as a human being. He's an absolute terrible, terrible human being out of the octagon, but he's an absolute exciting man to watch fight. He's the man who got me into UFC, so it's hard for me to absolutely hate him. So I'm very excited for his return. Also on this card, we have Valentina Shevchenko fighting Alexa Grasso, which will be an absolute brawl between those two women. I believe that should be a championship fight if I remember correctly. I believe Shevchenko is currently the champion of the flyweight division down there. So that will be an absolute brawl of a fight. Jeff Neal versus Shavkat Rakhmonov will be an absolute fight. Rakhmonov is 16-0, so Jeff Neal is trying to end that win streak there. We got a lot going forward for the UFC. This is going to be a very exciting card coming up on March 4th. I can't wait, and I hope everybody else agrees that is very, very exciting moving forward. But on with UFC, there was something the day after that is the most watched game in all of football. It's the most watched thing on cable television. You could argue this thing right here is the reason cable television is still alive. It is football. It is because the Super Bowl is so big. And the Super Bowl is so big because you get games like we got on Sunday. We get Patrick Mahomes on an ankle. You get all-time moments and all-time games in these Super Bowls. And my God, did we get one this Sunday. We get the Chiefs defeating the Eagles 38-35. I'm sorry for everybody who saw that PFR page before the Super Bowl and said, oh, the script was leaked. Nope, it wasn't. Because there's no such thing as a script, people. The Chiefs got it done like I said they would, in the way that I said they would. I said certain things. I said the Chiefs are good from coming behind, but the Eagles are great from playing from ahead. The Eagles never really got ahead in this game. I think they were ahead for maybe. I know that they were ahead going into halftime. It's seven. It's 24-14 at halftime, right? And a lot of people argue that you look at that going into halftime, and it's all right. The Eagles got this going. But when you have a coaching staff like you have in Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, you really think about it, and you think about how that first half really worked, there was nothing. There was no really momentum on either side. The Eagles got going fast, but so did the Chiefs. Both of them scored fast. It was 7-7 early. Right? The Eagles defense got a little, they got going a little bit. And the Chiefs offense really stalled, but the Eagles offense never necessarily got going in a sense. I never felt like in that first half. The Chiefs get that big fumble return right before the end of the half, right? So now you get that big play for the Chiefs, right? Or I believe it was right before the half. It was sometime in the second quarter, if I remember correctly. I may be completely wrong, but that is a huge play. That if you think about going into halftime, now both teams haven't scored after that. Going into halftime, it's 24-14. The Chiefs. That's a huge momentum play, and the Chiefs come out. They move. And the Eagles fans, I know you're going to want to blame that holding call for the loss. And as a Saints fan, I know what it's like to lose a game off a call. And I've come to realize, and it's the truth, that you can't blame a game on one call. And before I even talk about this game, I'll talk about the Saints game as a Saints fan. I look back at that Saints game, and there's the Minneapolis Miracle, for example. There's a timeout Sean Payton calls for no absolute reason that sets up a pass out of bounds, that sets up the clock stoppage, that sets up the Minnesota Miracle. Sean Payton never calls that timeout. We never know if they even get up two plays, right? And then also going to that Rams loss, yeah, the pass interference happened. Yeah, the Saints were scoring on that drive, a touchdown on that drive, and probably winning the game. But you know what? They call it, and it's tied. We have overtime. We got the ball first in overtime. What happens? Drew Brees throws an interception. Rams go down and score a field goal. So there's more than just the one play that loses the game. In all honesty, was it a great call? No. Was it a bad call? No. James Bradbury even admitted, I held, I tugged, I thought it was going to ride. They didn't let it ride. So you're not sitting here arguing, oh, did he hold him? He held him. He did. James Bradbury admitted that I held him. He said it. It was, the argument is, oh, you can't call that call at that point in that game. But if you think about it, if you don't call it, all the Chiefs fans are going, how do you not call that call at that point in that game? Someone's going to be mad. Realistically, what happened, Eagles fans, is you gave up 24 points and you didn't score in the second half. Or not, you didn't score in the second half, but you gave up 24 straight points to the Chiefs. They scored 17, or not 24 straight, but still, I don't know. You gave up 24 points to them in the second half. You scored. Your defense didn't do the job. They didn't. They really didn't. But, I mean, credit to the Eagles, nonetheless. I don't want to take away from what Jalen Hurts did. He put on an absolute classic of a game for someone in his first Super Bowl. 304 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 15 carries, 70 rushing yards. 304 yards, 70 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. That QB sneak that the Eagles ran so beautifully. The Chiefs knew it was coming every time, and they still couldn't stop it because of how perfectly it was ran. Just what really helped the Eagles or the Chiefs win this game was Sanders and Gainwell couldn't get going in that second half. It became a shootout, and you're not beating the Chiefs in a shootout. Credit to Jalen Hurts. Credit to Devonta Smith. He had an absolute monster game. He almost had a touchdown. He had that absolute bomb where he was out of bounds on the 2-yard line. Shout out to A.J. Brown, had an absolute monster game. Eagles fans, like, don't be upset with the loss. That's why I'm saying don't blame that holding call, because for your team to put on your offense to put on the performance that they did in the Super Bowl was absolutely amazing. And it was in a way that you guys haven't done it all year. All year, you guys were the team that was going to run the ball. We're going to sit here and we're gonna give it to Gainwell Sanders. We're gonna go up 7-0 early, and we're gonna beat you 21-14. That's what we want to do. That's what the Eagles were all year. And they were forced to not do that, and their offense played absolutely amazing. A.J. Brown made one of the greatest Super Bowl catches I've ever seen. I'm not going to obviously compare it to like Edelman or like Santonio Holmes. It's not one of those catches because it didn't win them the game or anything. But that deep ball where he adjusts to the ball, the way that he ran that route and adjusted to the ball midair was absolutely perfect. So Eagles fans, don't be upset with the way your team played. Just the Chiefs are the Chiefs. What else can I say? An absolute classic out of the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes has only 182 yards through the air, but has 3 touchdowns. He had 6 carries for 44 yards, including that one rush that I believe it was like a 27-yard rush at the end of the game that after nobody saw that coming. Let me talk about that play. Like, think about it. You see that play right before the half when Mahomes, he gets tackled, right? And he's limping off the field right after this ankle injury. And you don't know, is Mahomes going to come back? And you get no word on it literally until he comes back on the field after halftime. Throughout the whole halftime show, they had no word on Mahomes if he was coming back. So that ankle was clearly, he is in excruciating pain. And to make that run at the end of the game to set up that field goal, pretty much oh my God, what a play out of Mr. Mahomes. What a classic play out of him, and what a classic game out of him. Travis Kelce also had an absolute day. He had 6 receptions, 6 targets, 81 yards and a touchdown, which was the first touchdown for the Chiefs. Juju did his thing in the Super Bowl with 6 receptions and 53 yards. And the Kansas City Chiefs get it absolutely done. And I just want to say, what did I say earlier this year when the Giants made the trade to the Chiefs for Kadarius Toney? We're going to look back at the end of the season, and Kadarius Toney is going to have an amazing playoffs or have this one play where you sit there and go, man, they got him for a 3rd-round pick or a 4th or like a 6th or something, whatever it was. You know what I mean? Kadarius Toney, Chiefs are up. They're up 30 or they're up 28-27 with 10 minutes left in the 4th quarter. Their defense just gets a huge stop. Kadarius Toney gets the longest punt return in NFL history or in Super Bowl history. He gets a 65-yard punt return with 10 minutes left in the 4th quarter to then set up a receiving touchdown caught by himself to extend the lead to 35-27. And at that point, after that punt return was huge in momentum. I felt like personally after I saw that punt return, I knew the game was going to be over. I knew that Hurts maybe had a drive in him to go tie up the game, but I knew Mahomes had better in him. And that's exactly what happened. That punt return was huge for momentum and huge for time. It set the Chiefs up for an easy touchdown, quick touchdown. So Hurts scores a little too early to give the Chiefs, and they run perfect clockwork on that last drive. You know, the Chiefs O-line plays absolutely insane against an Eagles pass rush that was the best in the league and going on an absolute tear up to this point. Had 70 sacks in the regular season, and I believe 80 sacks going into the Super Bowl. So absolutely insane for them to not give the Chiefs O-line, credit to them, don't give up a single sack. Pat Mahomes did not hit the ground once on Sunday. You had Pacheco also absolutely have a game. He had 76 yards and a touchdown, and just an absolute classic of a game. One of the best Super Bowls I've ever seen with my own two eyes, outside of probably the 28-3 comeback, to be completely honest with you. So, really, really a lot of credit to the Chiefs for what they're able to do. And now you look at this, and you have to think about Mahomes. You could argue Mahomes retires tomorrow as a Hall of Famer. Mahomes, 5 years as a starter, 5 AFC championships, 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 Super Bowl championships, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and regular season MVPs. And the first person to win regular season and Super Bowl MVP since Kurt Warner in '99. Mahomes retires tomorrow, you could argue he's in the Hall of Fame. Now, like I said, are we seeing the build of a Chiefs dynasty here? Like I said, you got 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, 5 AFC championships in 5 years, 3 Super Bowl appearances in 5 years. This is a Chiefs league. And I think going into every season, we have to remember that. I think a lot of people after Tyreek Hill was traded in the offseason and the Raiders, you looked at it, you looked at the AFC West, the Chiefs, you saw Travis Kelce say in his interview, he goes, we were all disrespected and y'all counted us out before the season, yada, 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 right? And he wasn't wrong. Going into the season, we were looking at it, we were like, will the Chiefs lose the AFC West? You got the Broncos just got Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, was coming in. Nope. The Raiders, they were supposed to be on a roll. They just got Devontae Adams? What? The Raiders? Ooh. The Los Angeles Chargers got that young gun. They got Herbert. Ooh, Keenan Allen. They just traded for Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, that defense. Traded for J.C. Jackson, or signed J.C. Jackson out of New England. Oh, my God. The Chargers. No, this is the Chiefs league, people. And it will be for a long time, as long as they have Pat Mahomes playing quarterback for them. I'm dead serious with y'all. And it's nothing, it's just, I think we have to remember that. Like I said, a lot of people, I think, got infatuated with the bells and the whistles of Tyreek Hill's traded away. Oh my God, Patrick Mahomes can't just throw it deep to someone now. Oh my God. Oh no. Russell Wilson's on the Broncos? Oh no. Really? You got to remember who's been there, done that, people. And it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been there, done that. The Chiefs, you have to remember, this is a Chiefs team that beat a Tom Brady-led Patriots team at one point in an AFC championship and kicked him out of New England. Think of that. This is a Chiefs league, people. And I think going into next year, no matter what happens this offseason with yada yada going, oh, no way he gets traded. I think the favorite going into next season should be the Chiefs, and it should always be the Chiefs until we prove that it's not the Chiefs. I don't think it should be the Bills. The Bills haven't won anything yet. I don't think it should be the Eagles. The Eagles, well, they just lost in the Super Bowl and just lost their offensive and defensive coordinator as head coaches. One to the Colts and the other to Arizona. So it's the Chiefs league. I think we all got to remember that. And we got a lot to think about. Sadly, the NFL season is over. So we're going to sit here and we're going to go through all the off-season hustle and bustle of trade rumors and this and that. And what's Aaron Rodgers doing? And, he's going on his darkness retreat later this week, he said today on the Pat McAfee show. We got a lot going on there. Who's going to be traded this year? We got a huge draft going up. What are the Bears going to do in the draft is a huge story. I think the draft is very interesting with the Bears. I think honestly, it's hard to go away from Justin Fields. He's the only bright spot on the whole squad. So with Justin Fields just being there, I don't really know what you could do. I don't know if you draft CJ Stroud or Bryce Young and trade Fields. I don't know if you could do that because, like I said, you look at this Bears team over the last few years and over definitely this past season. He's definitely been the bright spot there of their team. So I can't really see how you let him go. You know, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and that's what's scary. Justin Fields has proven he could do it in the NFL. No one else has. So really, I don't really know what what to think about the draft. You got a lot of people needing stuff. The Saints trade in, they get 30 after Sean Payton gets hired as the Broncos head coach. So that's huge. A lot of head coach signings throughout the NFL this year so far. Actually, let me look that up on my computer right now. We're going to look into head coach hiring so far this offseason. Because actually, like, speaking of that, hiring the Broncos with Sean Payton, with someone who has experienced the Sean Payton whole thing, I think it will work very well. I think if anybody can fix Russell, it would be him in a sense. So I think it's perfect for them to get Sean Payton. I really like how Sean Payton runs his offenses. He's a quarterback guru. He if you look back at those old Saint offenses, as good as Drew Brees was, they were you had to be very timed out. It was the receiver's going to be here at this time. Drew put it here at this time, and the receiver will be there no matter what. Like that's what it was, and those are drawn up by Sean Payton at the end of the day. So that I really like that hire, and I think it could really improve what they do there in Denver. Again, do I think they're going to compete for the division with the Chiefs? No, I think it's the Chiefs' division to lose. Like I literally just went on a rant about before. But I think the Broncos could maybe win a few more games and show improvement that the last year was a fluke year for Russell Wilson. Maybe squeeze into a wild card, maybe not. Maybe be just outside, but looking up. You had D'Amico Ryans hired in Houston. That's another good hire I really like. He's been proving these San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan guys are good coaches. You got Salah in New York, who's been doing a great job. A lot of those guys. So another hire that I don't hate. You got the Colts hired. They announced, I believe it was earlier this morning, they hired Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. I think another solid hire. It was between him and Jeff Saturday. I didn't think Jeff Saturday was going to get the job because of what seemed to be going on. The story seemed to be that Jim Irsay was sitting there being Jim Irsay. I'm Jim Irsay. And I want Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday been in the building before. I want Jeff Saturday. But, Chris Ballard was like, hey, can we get a real head coach? No offense, Jeff, but so they hire Shane Steichen, who obviously had a great year with that Eagles offense, what he was able to do with Hurts and really that whole offense, the run game, the blocking schemes, all of that were very well. So a solid hire for the Colts, who have a very good running back. So even if it's necessarily not a Hurts style offense and you still have Matt Ryan, but you have 4. So you could draft a quarterback at 4. So whoever that rookie quarterback may be for the Colts this year, or if it's Derek Carr, you don't have to run that same style of offense that you ran in Philly. You could run a more pound and ground offense with a Jonathan Taylor that you have. So I'm excited to see what happens down there in Indy. And then also you have, the Carolina Panthers hired Frank Reich, who I think was a great hire for Carolina. Fresh out of not a great job of what he did in Indy, but I don't think he was necessarily the only one to blame. I think bad quarterback play just plagued Indy. I think they thought they had, Carson Wentz, maybe he could do something. He couldn't. Matt Ryan, maybe he could do something at the end of his career. He immediately fell off a cliff. I don't feel like necessarily it was that much of Frank Reich's fault, but I do feel like him in Carolina, he's good at. He could. I think Frank could build a team pretty well. I think that's what you need to do with Frank. Not give him a team to rework, give him a team to rebuild, give him his own work and what something to do. I don't think he's necessarily that bad of a head coach. Carolina's a hard job to take over. They don't have much to work with there, so it's definitely going to be hard. They have 9 overall, so can you get a quarterback at 9 overall? I don't know. Maybe they get a Derek Carr. Maybe they get one of these veteran quarterbacks, trade for an Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. They're in a weak division with the Saints, the Bucks, all of us. We all have no quarterbacks right now. We all got nothing. So it is a weak division. It's an open division that you could win with a bad team. But not a terrible hire, but not a hire I necessarily love. And then the final hire so far of this cycle, the Arizona Cardinals hire the Eagles defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. Even though it seemed like he struggled on Sunday, it seemed that that was no big deal in the Cardinals. They were dead set on hiring Gannon over. I know they interviewed Lou Anarumo, who is the Bengals defensive coordinator, who I'm a big fan of. I would have been a bigger fan of that hire for Arizona, honestly. But they go with Gannon instead. He obviously an insane year for the Eagles in that pass rush and that defense. Where they were a top 5 defense, a top two, the number 1 pass rush in the league, an absolutely insane year for that Eagles defense and what they were able to do. And like I said, we got the 20. Now we move on. Sadly, the NFL season is over. So when it comes to football, it does go on the back end. We do have mock drafts, finally coming out, first mock drafts. Really looking deep into these mock drafts. I don't know who people are trying to think are going number 1. I'm trying to find a mock draft. Like maybe Kuiper made one. I don't know. Here, Pro Football Focus. I just pulled up their mock draft, right? So they have the Colts trading up, which I could definitely see. Especially Irsay said something in an interview recently where he was like, I really like that Alabama kid. Maybe we trade up. And then Ballard goes, or maybe we trade down. So that was a little insight on what maybe is going into the Colts conversations. But the Colts, so in this mock draft, they got the Colts trading up, getting Bryce Young at 1, who I feel like he's someone who a lot of people feel like he's the next top thing. It's someone you got to trade up for. I didn't watch a lot of college football, but I know Alabama was in Alabama this year, so I don't necessarily know. I usually have quarterbacks that, like, from what I've seen, are my favorites, and I've been pretty good with people who have at least had a little stretch of being good. I think, I like Deshaun Watson coming out. He was really good. He ended up being a terrible, person, but he was pretty good as a quarterback. I always liked I've definitely missed on some, but my favorite quarterback so far, I don't know if he's declaring for the draft. I really like the dude out of Tennessee. Um, I'm not a big CJ Stroud guy either when it comes to people being drafted, but they have CJ Stroud going to Carolina at 9. I could see that happening. I can't see anybody here in the top 5 really drafting CJ Stroud. If I really look at it, maybe Houston. They got Houston going with Will Levis out of Kentucky, who I never really saw play. I never really saw Kentucky on TV at all because I only really watch the major college football games. But he I've heard is a really good prospect. I got to look at the highlights with the draft coming up. So I don't know much about him. They have Jalen Carter going 3, who currently I think might go 1 and end up just in in Chicago. Him being, I think he's like 6'7", 400, 300 pounds, and an absolute monster for that Georgia defense. So we got a lot coming up here in the NFL world, and yeah, we got the draft coming up, the combine coming up, we got free agency coming up. What's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? What's going to happen with Derek Carr? He's officially getting released. He's not getting traded. What's going to happen with DeAndre Hopkins? He's up to be traded. So you really, really, really got a lot of stories going on here. Not only that, we got the NBA, and I'm going to start really getting into now that we're getting into All-Star break. I'm NFL season's over. NHL, I'm going to start watching a little bit more. We got I believe the Islanders played 2 days ago and lost, if I remember correctly. Let me check that. Last time Islanders played. The Devils' last game was on Saturday. They lost to the Wild. The last Islanders game was also on Saturday. They lost 4-3 to the Canadiens. So those are the only 2 New York, New Jersey teams that have played in the past over the weekend. The Rangers have not played yet so far. They play soon, though. So we got that going on in NHL. I am going to end the show a little bit early this week because, just, NFL, it ends. It's a sad thing. And there's not that many stories going on. I talked about NBA, how I felt. We got the Kyrie trade. We got that going on. All that, what you got the Suns, KD, that whole trade. He's supposed to come back after the All-Star break. So that's going to be really exciting to see how the West shakes up once KD's able to come back and get going, work with that team, get chemistry. The Knicks just made a big trade. Lakers made a couple of trades, and they've been really bad. They're not even in the play-in right now. So maybe the Lakers could go on a run after the All-Star break, squeeze into the playoffs. Could they go on a run and go to the championship? Who knows what could happen in the NBA? Post All-Star break is when it gets really exciting. That's when I usually start watching anyway. Like I said, UFC, we got a lot coming up on March 4th. We got Johnny Bones Jones coming back. Even after that, I believe it is 2 weeks later. Yes, it is. On March 18th in the O2 Arena, we got Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, the rematch, part 3. Can Usman get his belt back? I mean, he won the whole fight. You look back at that first rematch, or that first fight, we all thought, or that second fight, technically, we all thought about it. We were writing Usman off, or Edwards off. The commentator booth, Cormier and Rogan, all them, they were giving Usman his flowers. And then, boom, Shadow Realm head kick. Leon Edwards is the new champion. So that's going to be a big fight. You also got Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev fighting as the co-main. Gaethje's a dog, so that'll be an absolute fun fight. And to end the show, what I want to do is go back to the great Super Bowl and go back to a segment that everybody loved this year. And I will give away my Super Bowl MVP, a.k.a. the Log Show Super Bowl 57 Certified Dog Award. And there's a lot of people who could have won this award. Obviously, Kelsey's a dog. He had a touchdown early. He didn't drop a pass. Juju did what Juju did. He was getting open. There was one point where I think he had like 4 straight receptions. Pacheco, 76 yards and a touchdown. You had McKinnon, who I'm going to call a dog for running the clock perfectly and sliding down at the 2-yard line to make sure that the Chiefs could run that clock down to 6 seconds and just kick that field goal. Dog. Kadarius Toney. What a play. Oh my God, the punt return to set his own touchdown up. Certified dog. And he was a dog in New York, too. Yo, we're hyping him up at the end of last year. Y'all were like, this man is an absolute animal. He is a dog. He's a dog that just helped the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. But who else can I give it to but the league MVP, the Super Bowl MVP, the young GOAT himself, Patty the Batty Mahomes. This man on a high ankle sprain. People didn't know if he was going to come back in the game. Makes one of the biggest runs. That run will be replayed in Super Bowls over and over and over again. For Pat Mahomes to do what he did on a high ankle sprain and absolutely play an all-time classic of a game, scored 3 passing touchdowns, had that offense moving. Yeah, he didn't have 200 yards somehow, some way. I don't know. But absolutely dog of a game from Patrick Mahomes. He wins my certified dog of the week award for Super Bowl 57, the classic that ended this 2023 NFL season. I can't wait for it to come back. I can't wait for all these off-season stories that I'll be popping up with every week that I'm hearing about because blah, blah, blah gets mad about his contract or this and that. I can't wait for all that absolute craziness. I can't wait for basketball season to really get running and really get down to the nitty-gritty. Same thing with NHL season to really get running, really get down to the nitty-gritty because NHL playoffs might be the best thing in sports. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for it all. I can't wait for what we have coming up in sports. It's a great time in sports right now. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is the Log Show on WSJU Radio.